Hey, football fans, welcome back to another episode of Lions Latest, the show we gather on to talk about the greatest team in the NFL, the Detroit Lions. I'm your host, Bryan Hanes, and we have some schedule stuff to talk about, so let's get into the video. Beforehand, though, if you're not already, please consider going down and hitting subscribe, as well as going over to my other socials on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're now there thanks to your guys' continued support, so going over there and leaving a follow would mean the world to me. With that being said, though, let's jump into our first topic. And yeah, you've already read it. Lions are actually on the docket to maybe sign another defensive end in free agency. And listen, I've already talked about my opinion. I don't think we're going to sign any more defensive ends. I think after we got Derek Moore in the draft, signed DJ Wonham, signed a few other guys as well in free agency. I don't really see us spending any more money on the defensive end, but this has been going around the media, and I think it's worth talking about because it would be a cheap option for sure. So, I think personally, we're set. I think personally we're set. But Pro Football Sports Network Jacob Infante sees the Lions doing exactly the opposite of that with Clelin Ferrell. Do you know who Clelin Ferrell is? Well, if you don't, let's go into that. On May 4th, this guy ranked Ferrell as the number 24 best player still available in free agency. He also predicted that the Lions would be the team to take the former top 5 draft pick. You're thinking, Brian, how's a top 5 draft pick going to be a cheap option? Well, let's go into that, right? After playing just one game for the Chargers as a practice squad player, Farrell carved out a niche for himself in the 49ers defensive rotation as they dealt with numerous injuries on that front, right? He's hardly an impact defender off the edge, but he's a solid enough contributor to be adding things to the team. He had 4 sacks in 8 games for San Francisco. Not a bad stat whatsoever if you're not considered a playmaker in today's game, but still seems like he's being productive enough to hang around in the NFL. The Raiders ended up selecting Farrell number 4 overall in the 2019 NFL draft. Of course, a Raiders player is going to be bad and washed up by this point. But last season, the defensive end posted 25 combined tackles, including 4 tackles for loss with the Los Angeles Chargers and the San Francisco 49ers, proving that he still has a little bit left in the tank to give. Farrell played 8 of his 9 games during 2025 with San Francisco. He also had 4 sacks and 5 quarterback hits in this time. The Washington Commanders actually released Farrell on the NFL's roster countdown day last August, and after that, it took nearly a month for Farrell to find another NFL opportunity, and it only came on a practice squad. So this is why I'm saying he's going to be a cheaper option. He's still doing a few things. He's still getting sacks here and there. He's still racking up a couple pressures, but he is purely a rotational / practice squad player. So I don't see him really taking up too much of our cap space. And at that point, it seems like Farrell's time as a potential solution for an NFL team is over, right? Like I said, he's going to be a rotational piece. But with the 49ers, he experienced a strong second half of 2025, and I think that should end up just because of that strong end of 2025, it should be enough to get him onto a roster in this upcoming season, whether or not it's going to be in the practice squad or not. Personally, I think this guy, when he started off, he had all this potential, all this, hype around him, never really materialized. Then he kind of floated around to some teams. And then with the 49ers, he got a little bit more things going last year. He's definitely getting to that point in his career where it's, make or break right now. It's either you go on a team for a long time or you're floating around teams for the rest of your career. And it seems like he's doing that second option right now. Not like he wants to, but it just is how it is. Now, I've said I don't think we're taking defensive end. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think we have the cap space to just be signing extra players for the fun of it. But if we were to, this would definitely be a guy to help bolster the defensive end depth, I think. It says it right there. He's purely a depth guy. And, if we throw him in for a couple plays, he might get us a sack here and there. He might be the guy who ends up making the difference if one of our big guys go out with an injury. Who knows? Personally, I'm not too big on this guy, but if you guys see something, if you guys like this name, please let me know in the comments. Now, for our second topic, the topic you've all been waiting for, the schedule, baby. So we got the schedule released. We know who are playing next season, and we know which weeks it's happening. We've already had a few hints here and there with some teams, but we got the full thing, and boy, oh boy, do the Lions have a nice schedule. So week 1, we're hosting the Saints. The New Orleans Aints are coming to Detroit. I don't see us losing this game. I think this should be one of those games that we get to really see what the offense is capable of. We get to play with some things. But to be fair, we thought the same thing when we were really good and we played the Saints and ended up being a little bit of a shootout a few years ago. So who knows? But personally, I think that's a great game to start. Then, of course, we know that we're going to Buffalo to play the Bills at their new stadium. We've talked about that. Go back in one of my other videos if you want to hear more about it. Followed by a home game against AG and the Jets. Yes, Aaron Glenn is coming back to the D with his Jets now. And this is another one where, we've said that the Jets, honestly, in the draft, the Jets had a pretty solid draft class. Now, you could say what you want about their first pick in the first round. Oh, why didn't we take the better defensive end on the board? Maybe AG knows something we don't know. But overall, they still have Geno Smith on the team. So, again, I don't really see us losing this one. That should be a good reunion, though. Then we go to Carolina to play the Panthers. Another away game against Petzing's old team in Arizona happens after that. So, a little bit of a grudge match for Drew Petzing, maybe. Could be an entertaining game to watch, even though the quarterback situation in Arizona is also kind of and then we host our first division game against the Packers. So yeah, Green Bay's coming to Detroit for the first division game of this season. That should be an exciting one. We hate the Packers. The Packers hate us. Always a good match to watch. And immediately followed up by another home game against the Vikings. So we got two divisional games back to back. One, and also they're both home games. So we get two home games against our rivals. Hopefully we can edge out a couple wins there because that back half of the season gets a little rough, and we'll talk about it shortly. Then we play the Dolphins away. Not much to say about the Dolphins. They're rebuilding. Then we play the Pats in Germany. Talked about that. Go back in my previous video. I'll talk about that. I'm excited to see Drake May. I'm excited for Amon Ra to play in Germany. Then we play the Bucks at home. Always a great matchup. For some reason, the Lions and the Buccaneers in the past 5 or so years, they've just played a lot. And especially, and then the playoffs too, where Derek Barnes got that, game-winning interception. I feel like the games against the Buccaneers are always just so entertaining to watch. I will definitely be out to watch that game somewhere. Then we play the Bears at home. Ben Johnson coming back to the D. Then we play the Falcons away. It'll be Jahmyr Gibbs versus Bijan. Who's the better running back? Lots of debates here. We'll see. Maybe this will be the game we get our definite answer. Then the Titans at home. And the last time we played the Titans at home, oh boy, Jahmyr Gibbs. Let's see if you can have a day again. Then we play the Vikings away for the second meetup. Giants at home. Last time we played the Giants at home, it was a shootout. Jameis Winston decided to go Heisman mode on us and catch a touchdown pass and stiff arm a linebacker. So we'll see what happens in this game. They're going to be a lot more healthy in this one too, but we will also be healthy. So who knows? Probably be a good game to watch. And then we go to Soldier Field for the Bears to play Ben Johnson again. And finally, the last game of the regular season is at Lambeau against the Packers to finish it all up. And I know it's like, oh, why do we have to end our last game of the season at Lambeau? That sucks. Well, we've actually done it before, and we ended Aaron Rodgers last season with the Green Bay Packers in a not-so-great note and also prevented them from going to the playoffs. So we've done it before. I think if Kirby Joseph is healthy and ready to go by this point, he'll have a field day going back to Lambeau. Should be a good one. I want you guys to let me know right now in the comments, what are your record predictions? You don't got to necessarily give me game to game who we're going to win. I'm sure we'll talk about that more in depth in a later video, but give me your record prediction for the Lions right now based on this one. I think we're going to have a great one. I will give you mine in a later video. Now we go to our third topic, where kind of a follow-up to the schedule, but the bye week. Actually, a lot of fans are not too thrilled about our bye week. So the cake or the schedule itself kind of seems like a cakewalk. I don't want to jinx anything, The Lions can't have anything nice, but just based on the teams I'm seeing, and especially the ones we play at home, boy, oh boy, do we have a little bit of a leg up. But there's just one issue, and that's the fact that the bye week is so early in the season. So this season, the Lions will have their bye week in week 6. The timing of the bye week has several trickle-down effects, including the fact that the team plays its final 12 games uninterrupted, and the fact that it could lead to a ton of injuries. Detroit will have its bye week following the week 5 matchup against Drew Petzing's old squad, the Cardinals. But another aspect of concern is the impact it'll have on the team's international travel. Detroit is slated to play overseas in Germany against the Patriots in week 10, which is 2 weeks before the Thanksgiving game against the Bears. While our schedule on paper seems easy or easier than most, there's a lot of little factors going into play here that might make it harder than we expect right off the bat. But because the bye is so early, the Lions will play 3 games in the span of 11 days. Holy moly, 3 games in 11 days? That's brutal. That is brutal. And it's starting with that international game. This is going to be challenging for the team. I don't care what team you are. Playing 3 games in 11 days in a sport like this at the level you're playing at, that's going to take a toll on your players for sure. And now they're going to have to be forced to maintain their elite performance in a stretch that could define the season because we're playing some all right teams in that stretch. The early bye week is also a tough stretch to end the season. Detroit finished the year with road games in 3 of their last 4 games, with all 3 road opponents being in the division. So we get to the later half of the season, we're probably tired. We don't have a bye week to rest, and we have to play not necessarily tough opponents, but division opponents, and that can sometimes be harder than big teams because the rivalry players are playing a little extra hard. We'll have to see what happens there, and hopefully our guys are ready to go and they're not tired. But it's not all bad news. In the past, we have been able to thrive in these situations despite the early bye weeks, including week 5 in 2024. Many remember that this was also the season the Lions earned the number 1 seed in the NFC. However, injuries were a huge part of this season. We didn't get a big rest, and a lot of people are blaming the training staff, all that stuff. But an early bye week can have a lot to do with that because players are going week to week to week to week. And then once you get that injury, you don't get a break. It can be tough, especially with some of the players we already have injured. And while the concern about the bye week is warranted, there certainly is a silver lining involved regarding the timing of it. The Lions have some players, including guys like Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, who are probably going to miss the first half of the season due to injuries suffered from last year. So the early bye week can be beneficial to these players' recovery, right? As it gives these guys and the whole team an extra week early in the season to recover until we get into the bigger chunk of the season where we have some division opponents on the road, stuff like that. And it's going to give us some time to reinsert them into the lineup prior to the bye and allow for a week of rest and follow up to return to play. I don't know. Do I like the early bye week? Not really, but we also see what the Lions do with the late bye week. We kind of if the week after the bye week we just don't. It's weird. It feels like we're coming out of a slump almost, and then it takes another week for us to get back to where we need to be. Maybe the early bye week's good. Who knows? We will only know when it happens, but you guys give me your opinion on this. Are you upset about the early bye week, or is it a blessing in disguise? Finally, a former Detroit tackle, a former Detroit defensive tackle gets released again and from my part-time team. So former Detroit Lions defensive lineman is looking for another home because he was just released after getting another chance in the league, and it was by last year's worst team. I am of course talking about the Las Vegas Raiders. Broderick Martin, big name. We've talked about him a lot. Many videos ago, but Broderick Martin was one of my favorite players that never really got to see the field that much just because of his build and the potential that he brought with him. He started his career with us, playing 2 seasons before he bounced around a trio of teams last season. He joined the Raiders near the end of the season, but was cut loose months before having a chance to compete for a roster spot at training camp. The Raiders announced that they have waived Martin this week, sending the 4-year NFL player back to the waiver wire. And at this point, what's going to happen with this guy's career? He's got all the makings to be a player at the next level, but he just has not shown any team that he can do it. And it's not that he can't do it, he's just never available. Martin has light NFL resume. He's only appeared in 5 total games for the Lions between 2023 and 2024 and playing exclusively on special teams. He started the 2025 season on the practice squad of the Kansas City Chiefs, but was poached by the Steelers and appeared in 1 game before being waived in December. Then he was reclaimed as the Raiders, but did not play in any games. Unfortunate to him, Martin's next move isn't clear at this point, right? But he could have a strong chance to return to maybe one of his former teams. The Lions could look to bring him back on the practice squad. We've gotten rid of some of our defensive tackles. Maybe it'd be a cheap option. Maybe it would just be, you're here for depth. Maybe we could develop you a little more. Personally, I don't think the Lions are going to go in that direction. But the big one that I'm thinking about is maybe he goes back to the Steelers. Now, not to say that he necessarily, was a huge Steelers guy, but he was actually scouted by the Steelers before the 2024 NFL Draft. Steelers defensive position coach Alex Kozora had previously reported that Steelers defensive lineman coach Carl Dunbar attended Martin's pro day at Western Kentucky and got a great look at what he could do. This dude, the big thing that stands out to me with Broderick Martin, long, super long arms. Go look up a picture of this guy. Super, super long arms. Great natural talent. He's a run stuffer and he's quick on his feet for how big this dude is because he is a big boy. But he's just injury prone. That's the issue. He doesn't have enough of a resume to really stick around on a long term team. And this is what I say where he's got the makings to be great. Extremely long arms. He's strong as heck. He's big as heck. He's got really agile feet for how strong he is. But it's just he's not on the field enough, even during the preseason, to really warrant being on any NFL team, and that's why he's been getting thrown around so much. So he's only had a few opportunities early in his career, and that's really not good because now he's getting to a point in his career where he needs to kind of have a resume to stick around, and unfortunately, he just doesn't have it. Unfortunate. Let me know. Would you guys like to see him come back to the Lions? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. He's still one of my players I like to keep tabs on. That's why we're doing a little topic about him. But personally, I just don't see the Lions doing it. I don't see the Lions going back to a guy who they didn't, really want to take more chances on in the first place. Plus, I don't think we're really not that desperate for defensive tackles. We took Tyleik Williams with our first round pick. We got some more defensive tackle depth. Personally, that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think is going to happen with Broderick Martin in the rest of his career. With that being said, we have time today in this video. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Lions Latest. If you made it at this point in the video, give me your opinion on the schedule and give me the record that you think we're going to have next season. Also, tell me what you think the hardest game is going to be next season. Personally, I mean, it's hard because 3 games in 11 days, any one of those games could be our hardest. But just off the bat, I think playing Bills at their new stadium in week 2 is going to be a brutal and rude awakening for us. But you guys let me know what you think. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell so you never miss a single video here. Make sure to go over my other socials and give us a follow. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.